the Big Ten season really starts now?
No, I don't. I think it's because I think when you are in it, right, is like every game is hard for a different reason. I mean, they're just hard for different reasons, and I think that every bit of the teams that supposedly you're supposed to beat on paper, they count the same, and they are every bit the separator that the people in the middle are and the people that the top are. So I think if you get lulled into like, really having emotions, if you played the hardest part of the schedule earlier, let's say you started out with a UCLA and Ohio State or Maryland or whatever, I think that discounts the really the difficulty of the Big Ten. There's just different degrees of difficulty.
That said, the next 2 weeks, how pivotal is one game at a time?
Yeah, it is. I know maybe people think I'm crazy, but if you don't win the first one and you don't set yourself up to be in this one, then we're having a whole different conversation of how pivotal these games are. But they'd be pivotal for a different reason, right? So I think they're pivotal for the ultimate goal of where you want to go. I think the key to this journey always is to kind of stay in that present time and to be fully aware that the games are going to get more competitive and better because everybody's records are real similar now, right? Everybody's jockeying, and a win, it could come down to that one win, right? So yes, it's very pivotal if you want to stay atop the conference, absolutely. And we're going to keep learning a lot more to see, now we've been tested in a lot of different ways, but now we're going to be playing teams that are they're edgy and they're fighting for a different reason. The same reason we are is to win the championship. Not just try to stay in the middle. You know what I mean? Or like Indiana just trying to get their first one. Oregon has played really, really well, and they know what a road win at a ranked place is going to mean to the end of the season. So you just have to handle the different pivotal moments and the mental makeup of the teams you face. That's another unique angle of it.
If you look at Oregon's point guard, Katie Fiso, she's averaging almost 18 a game in Big Ten play, up there in terms of assists, and
Yeah.
she turned it over a little bit, but just what do you see from her, and how important is it that you have Kylie Feuerbach?
Yeah, I think that Fiso is not talked enough about in this conference. She's probably not quite, averaging quite as much, points, or she's, maybe they haven't won quite as much earlier to get the buzz. She is sensational. Ball screen defense, boy, she is as good as I've seen. She's coming off a screen. They run a lot of great stuff. Callie Graves is a really great coach. He knew what to do with Sabrina Enescu, right? So he really spreads the floor. And when you're trying to jam those screens, he's got a shooter sitting really deep in corners. But I think she's a really key factor. I'm glad Kylie is back for sure. But she can just get going, and she's really savvy. I'm really impressed with her, and she worked really, really hard this summer. And you stay patient and you work really, really hard. There's that different role in that system, and she's totally improved and really making that engine go.
Could you tell us about the process of getting Kylie back as far as when you knew that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
on the table?
Well, it just, those high ankle sprain type of lengths of time with that bone jam or whatever, there's a pain tolerance aspect to it, but you want to make sure you don't come back too much. So then it just kind of nags, right? So she was having just a heck of a time pushing off. And obviously the game of basketball is all about the pushing off. So she really didn't start practicing until 2 days ago. And she only did quarter court things, maybe ran up and down. The first practice she got back. The second practice, she did a couple up and downs. So I really wasn't sure when we got to Indiana how hard it was going to be for her. But I think the adrenaline, getting into the game and getting confidence that she could kind of manage, what she was feeling. And that was the breakthrough. And then at halftime, it was pretty clear that she is such a big cog in our wheel that she has the skill set and the intellectual capacity of know when to pounce and know when to back off. So we just had to be patient until it got good enough for her to really start practice without fearing that it was going to, she was going to retweak it.
I asked you last week about playing time. You said you tell your players to treat every day like a game. That might control for some of the variance you might get between how players play differently in practice versus a game. But how much do you balance?
Yeah.
And how much variance is there between what you're seeing in practice versus what you're seeing in
Yeah, I mean, I think what I said by that is, meant by that, I guess, is it's a metric of which is used. I think sometimes people think you're arbitrarily just going by gut. You're arbitrarily, I mean, you're going to have camps of people that want it all to be feel and emotion. The way of the world right now is all analytics. Put an AI coach on the sideline. I mean, you'd still critique an AI coach that supposedly has all the, it's like, it's not an exact science. So I try to get as much data as possible because I truly care. I mean, forget the winning and the losing. Every one of my players, I believe they're some of the hardest working players. I believe we have some of the most selfless players. I believe if I could have just freeze a moment in time and put every one of my players in for 1 minute and 30 seconds, they could be the difference in that 1 minute and 30 seconds. I think sometimes, it's cavalier and it's easy to be like, oh, why you're not playing or not playing. I bet you most head coaches lose as much sleep over, trying to make sure you're making the best decisions possible, not only to win, but for these kids that are busting their tails. So that's a metric that I use to give clarity. But there is also a feel. There's also, when you're watching it day in and day out, a lot of the intangibles. It's just like, what group is humming together? What's the comfortability of the read? How often are they making the better read over maybe not the greatest read? That stuff you can't put in a box score. And so those are the things, that's the $1 million question. That's the beauty of sports is, you're watching the playoffs and you want them to run, a draw play and they run a little sweep. And why did we run that? Well, they've seen something in practice that the rest of us so clearly have seen differently. So it's just, it's not exact. And it's, you're just trying to get the right combinations, but it's probably the hardest part of coaching for sure.
And how quickly, I know I'm asking you for
Yeah.
kind of definite answers on a real gray
Yeah.
area here, but
Yeah.
how quickly can you figure out, like, they're not seeing it because they're maybe cold coming off the bench, or they're not seeing it because it's just not their day and we need to give them the hook?
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's just feels and, the more experience you've had, right, you get a sense the experiences of which to shorten the length of time that you're needed to make a decision, or to maybe you made the wrong read, but the next time down, because you have a lot of great practices, a lot of great months, a lot of great years, right? So it's just by virtue sometimes of the database and what you've consistently seen in similar situations, starting probably in the fall. So that is going to be a little bit more of the emotion, a little bit more of just what you've seen and what you've tracked. And I think that's just is the process and letting it develop, and the kids that have really consistently shown that. So I don't think there's a one exact moment. Sometimes it just depends on what you want to run in the game. You need more defense than you need offense. Which kids kind of can handle switching because you haven't been practicing that as much. So you got to go with the people that aren't going to blow the switch, because if they blow the switch and it's a close game and all of a sudden there's a wide open layup because two people go to a shooter, so a lot of things that you're just trying to weigh in real time. But I don't think there's any moment, or there's no knee-jerk moment where, absolutely not. It just depends on scoring time, pace, and a lot of experiences in similar situations.
Oregon doesn't have a true center in their starting lineup. They go with two forwards, and it's interesting because their 6 foot forward is the one that kind of plays close to the basket, and their 6'2" forward, Mia Jacobs, is the one that can shoot
Yeah.
three and be in the mid range. I think everybody assumes that in a game where the tallest player just, would be Ava that guards her. Is this a game where you
Right.
could see Hannah guard Mia
Yep,
Jacobs?
well, yep, it really will, it'll depend. I mean, depends, Jacobs can shoot. I
Right.
mean, up until the last game, she was shooting 51% from the threes. I think she dropped that down, just got a little cold, and she's at 42. No, wait, yeah, 43 for her, and their small forward, Sophia Bell, is at 42. Yeah, I think that could, depending on what we need at the time and who can kind of handle their, I think it's a Tute, I think, is, I love her motor. Boy, she is battles. She battles and battles. She reminds me of a little bit of a Journey, Houston, just a little bigger and got another year under her belt, but undersized, but doesn't matter. So that's a pretty lethal combination because she gets she clears the board. She's averaging 3 offensive boards, and she's just mighty. Her duck-ins are powerful, and you just can't, you can't, sometimes you can sag off of the other 4 out there with a little dig in, but if you don't have a hand up, what's impressive about Mia Jacobs is that I've seen her twice in a game, like the kid's right here, right here, but she reads that they're really not aggressively, and she'll just pull it, just kind of like a little guard does. So, yeah, and I think depending on foul trouble, depending on who can really handle the banging more, or maybe we want to give a little break on that. That's why I was really pleased to see when we switched Ava off. We've done that in practice a little bit, but when we did it in Indiana, when I wanted to switch, because I wanted Hannah to go up and trap Shea Chesky, and then Ava had a guard there, number 3, who can, McCluskey. So she was able to handle that. So I hope that practice will help in the game.